All righty, bro. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside Texas with Mitch and Jeff. That's Mitch Thames over there, and I am just the guy who runs the board.
Runs the board, that knows what's
runs.
going on, knows what
Oh
button to push.
man, I'm telling you. Sometimes, I know which buttons to push on certain people, but sometimes I get it wrong on this one over here. But anyway, we got your weather forecast down there at the bottom and all that stuff. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. We had over 4,000 hits this past week, just between YouTube, the Facebook rerun, and right here on GCOR1.com. Easiest way to watch it. If you want to comment, go down to the bottom of the corner of the page down there on your left-hand side on GCOR if you're watching. And just click it there. It takes you right to the YouTube page. You can start commenting right away. So it's very simple to do. If you go to GCOR one and then go down to the bottom where it says YouTube, click on that, and it takes you to the YouTube page, and you can start doing your comments and all that other stuff. Whatever it is, questions you got to ask. And don't forget, if you got questions to ask, Inside Texas24 at gmail.com. Inside Texas24 at gmail.com. So we got a lot to cover over today. So we have a few people that are going to be joining. Well, we have someone that's going to be joining us.
Right.
V is going to be joining us from AEP. She's going to give us an answer on why the rates are going up a little bit, and she's going to tell us why and what that concerns. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the early voting. We're going to talk a little bit about the wind turbines. I guess are a little issue with the airport right now. So we got a lot of things to talk about. So
a lot.
Whatever it is you want to hit first. So let's talk about, I guess, about the wind turbines. Huh?
Yeah. So, Jeff, I mentioned this. I had went to a workshop. We had talked about this on one of the previous shows. We had went to Mike Ferdinand and I had went to a workshop where I thought we were going to get to listen to, I don't know about pros and cons, but a layout of just exactly what the situation is. So just to kind of give a little bit of background on what's going on, we've got 53 existing wind turbines south of Bay City, between Bay City and Matagorda. And when you drive down 60 South, you can't miss them. And so the company, RWE, was interested in adding another 54, I think, wind farms, wind turbines, and continuing to go east. Well, the further east that you go, 60, you'll run into 457 and then eventually right off of 2540. And they, out of the 54 wind turbines, the airport had identified 5 that were of concern. I will say it that way. The FAA had their own 5. And so we were talking, so 10 in total. So RWE was looking at replacing or moving the ones there that the FAA had concerns about. But the FAA had approved the 5 that the city and the airport had a concern about. And that just confused me, I'll be honest. And so I went to that workshop thinking that we were going to get some answers and didn't. And I guess I'll admit I was a little frustrated. But the other night, Tuesday night, they had another meeting, open meeting this time. And they had a fellow that had worked for the FAA, an attorney. He's from Bay City, very well known to a lot of the families here. And he had a really great presentation. And I did extend an invitation to Scotty Jones. She is the interim city manager. I did extend an invitation to Bradley Westmoreland and Blaine Finley. They're both out of town. In fact, they were both at airports when I was texting them, so they weren't available. to jump on. But I wanted to give you, I had all of my answers. I had all my questions answered. It was a very thorough explanation. I know that our two newspapers will be covering it. I read a little something in I guess it had to have been the Sunday paper. I'm sure Jessica Shepard, she was there with the Sentinel. I'm sure she will write about it. I will get that paper. I think it comes out on Wednesday. I get mine on Thursday in the mail. But in retrospect, because I said, well, how did the city or the airport have a problem with wind turbines when the FAA approved it? And it was a very good explanation. And if I've got this correct, I wanted to make sure I got this correct. The FAA looks at 600 feet and above. And they don't look at anything below 600. Kurt, with the former FAA official, said that the airport is responsible for 0 to 200 feet. Now, I didn't get the answer of who's responsible from 201 to 600, but and he explained that the airplanes that normally fly out of the Bay City Airport aren't the most powerful planes. He had a fancy name for them, one engine, basically. He talked a little bit about our pilots probably aren't, well, in his words, not commercial pilots. And our local pilots, I'm assuming they may have, I'm sure they got their pilot's license. They keep that up. They go through all the rigorous training. And Kurt felt like it was a safety issue for these 5 wind turbines to be placed where they were proposed, because he, and to quote him, he didn't want one more thing for the pilot to worry about. And he also was worried that these little bitty aircraft with low power couldn't climb high enough, fast enough. Now, if I'm butchering that explanation, I apologize. That's what I heard sitting there, that you didn't want to give one more thing to a pilot. In other words, when they're taking off, you don't want to give them something out there that they got to move around, and you don't want them to have to climb so fast and I guess tax the little engine in these little planes taking off from the Bay City airport, little municipal airport. I think there's a lot of planes that they keep out there, Jeff. But so the idea is that these 5 need to be moved. I don't know what the answer is, but they stated very carefully that safety is number one. Giving these pilots one more thing to do when they're trying to take off or land is not good. And the type of aircraft that we have isn't powerful enough to soar into the sky. It was what I interpreted. So it was a very well run meeting. The mayor did an extremely good job. In fact, after Kurt had made his presentation, it was just really Mike Ferdinand and I in the audience. And the mayor said, "Hey, do y'all have any questions for him?" And I didn't. I had all of my questions answered.
Okay, so here, real quick, Mitch, just to let you know, and I remember this because of the radio towers have to have lights on them. It's 200 feet. It's 200 feet and above. Anything below 200 feet is not FAA required. So requirements for FAA is 200 feet and above. Okay. So the problem, what you're saying, is those little Piper Cubs that are out there, the airplanes. Yeah, it's true. They take off and do a gradual lift, and you don't want to do the turning, especially low altitude, because of the winds, crosswinds, wind shear, things like that. So when they're taking off, they normally want them to take off at least 100 to 200 feet to get 100 to 200 feet before a turn. Okay? Yeah, okay. And then I remember that part I remember. So 100 to 200 feet off the ground before an actual turn left or right or whatever. But most of them are traveling anyway. Most of those planes are traveling 1,200 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,200, 1,500 feet, 2,000. When they're traveling up, they're up 3 to 5,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for something to take off towards a wind turbine at 200 feet, and I don't know, I'm not 100% sure how many feet it is until they hit that 200 or more.
He had Jeff. He had a formula. It didn't make any difference. I mean, it didn't. I didn't understand it, but he had a formula there.
Right, and I'm reading that from the FAA deal. Let's see, can I put that up there? Oh yeah, watch. I can put that. Hang on, I'm gonna paste this. All right, and I'm gonna put this up here, and this way you guys can see it. All right, so I can show this here, right there. According to the Federal Aviation FAA instruction, exceeding 200 feet above the ground, AGL must be appropriately marked tower lights to tower paint. In addition to, right here, Communications Commission governs monitoring requires for airport obstruction lights. So there you go.
Yeah. So here's what, and then got a hearing. I had to leave. It was already getting late. They were talking about when they were going to hold the variance hearing. RWE has asked for a variance from the airport. I don't know how the council is going to vote. I'll tell you how I would vote. I would ask RWE to move them since we've got a question of safety. So the decisions have still not been made. It was going to be the 29th, but I know Blaine Finley was not going to be there and he wanted to be there. So date to be determined to vote on this. RWE will then have to decide what to do, whether they pick 5 more locations or whether they drop those 5. I don't know. That's something for RWE to decide. But I did get the answer, and it was reported to me, and I apologize. What bothered me was there were so many rumors flying around. And that was what concerned me. And then I went to that meeting and they went right into executive session. But I'm telling you, this meeting this last Tuesday, what was very informative. Like I said, it went on for quite a while. It went on for quite a while, and I ended up leaving before they set the date. But I had all of my questions answered. It's safety, it's the type of aircraft, it's the type of pilots that we have, and so I understand. It's about a $300 million project to the county. Of course, the city wouldn't benefit because none of that area is in the ETJ for the city. But about $300 million toward our tax base, which as a taxpayer, I like adding $300 million to the tax base. And Jeff, full disclosure, I've never been a renewables kind of energy guy, but with all of the renewed interest and the clear direction that our industrial partners want renewables, wind and solar, I'm going to have to acquiesce and say that we need this wind farm. Now, I had nothing to be against the solar farm, although it certainly turned out to be hazardous for the Needville solar farm when the hail hit a couple of weeks ago and busted all of those panels. I understand they've all been replaced now and it's back up in operation. But so that's the answer on the RWE, the city of Bay City, the airport ordinance. I did get an answer that, I had a question about why we had a countywide ordinance over the little airport out here east of, right there south of Van Vleck. And they said that's what the FAA requires. It had to be a county-wide deal. It did talk about the fact that if we got a complaint, the city would be sued. And if we lost the complaint against the then we'd have to pay back 6 years worth of grants, which is about $10 million. A lot of information in in that meeting. It looks to me like that if you went ahead with this and a pilot filed a grievance, it would go to the FAA administrator, and if they ruled against us, you could fight it in district court or in Fifth Circuit Court, New Orleans, and all that's expensive. And then if you lost there, you'd have to give back all this grant money. So
Right.
looks to me like it's settled. No, let me back up. I misspoke. It looks like it's settled for me. Mike Ferdinand didn't have any other questions that evening, but it still has not been voted on by council. So the council still has to have the variance hearing. RWE will present its case, and the city council, mayor and city council will decide. So
even though it's a county thing, they still got to do it.
Yeah, it's the city is responsible because it's a municipal airport. The city owns it. The ordinance had to be countywide, and I think that the ordinance had county representation on it when it was being written. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a closed door. The council, it is not a closed door. They still have to vote. RWE still presents theirs, and then we'll see what direction the council goes, and then we'll see what direction RWE goes. But full disclosure on everything, I appreciate the openness. They did go into a closed session. I actually, thank goodness, because I was late to the meeting. But I got there as soon as they came into open session. Had a really great PowerPoint presentation. Oh, and I'd be remiss if anybody wants to see it. That meeting was recorded, so either go to the City of Bay City website or go to the City of Bay City Facebook page. I think they posted the link there. If you want to watch the meeting yourself, which I encourage you to do, go to the City of Bay City website. All of the council meetings are recorded. They're all online. I think they particularly posted that segment on the City of Bay City Facebook page. Take a look at it. See if you have any questions. And certainly you can reach out to me. We'll get with the mayor and city manager and and get your questions answered. I didn't have any more, but I know that Scotty is preparing a written, a kind of a Q&A kind of deal. So if you have any questions, be sure and email us. Give us that email one more time: insidetexas24@gmail.com.
That's it.
Oh man, I'm good. I'm good. Give us, if you have a question, reach out. I mean, you don't have to go through me. You can call the mayor. You can email the mayor, city manager. We'll get that added in her question and answers. I happen to get all of mine answered. Mike got all of his answered. So we're moving forward with the city will be moving forward with the hearing, a variance hearing. And then RWE will decide what they want to do. Again, just in closing, it's a $300 million deal, property taxes that they'll be paying. Probably take 2 years to get going. But there you go. It looks like we're in the renewable energy production module. As a side note, on the 29th of April, commissioners will be entertaining a motion to grant a tax abatement of some type to a battery storage operation. So if you put a battery storage with wind, it helps elongate that. You turn the turbines at night, stores up the battery, and then you can discharge the batteries during the day. We already have one on 60 North State Highway 60 North, right there in town. I think it's God, I can't remember the name of that that corner, but it's right there, just north of K2. Go out there a little bit. I think it's 12th Street. Right near the AEP power substation. Used to be two houses there. They tore those houses down. They put a battery bank there. Again, they charge it during the night when power's cheap, and discharge it during the day. So a lot of new technology. I read a pretty cool article about thermal energy production, that the state of Texas is looking at geothermal power production. They drill a well really deep into the core of the earth where it's hot. They pump out the hot water, spin the turbines, and then pump that water back down into the earth. So, Jeff, there's some crazy.
And I don't want to. Miss V, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Okay, she is. Go ahead. I'll bring you on in 1 second. Hang on, because I have a question that I'm going to ask you before I bring her on, because she's liable to find me and shoot me for this one. I don't know.
Okay.
But we talk about all this power and everything, and one question I want to ask Ms. V when we get there, the power grid. We're always complaining that power grid's always not. We got places where we're making power and got power and this and that, but what do we got to do to fix the grid to handle everything that we're adding on to? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good question, and I'll give you my uneducated answer, and that is, when you're hearing people talk about the grid, in my opinion, and V's the expert, in my opinion, you're not talking about the wires that sends the power down. I think when people say the grid, I think they're talking, in my opinion, they're talking about the power production capabilities. Because when you've got ERCOT issuing a warning, a warning, it's not about the wires. It's because they're not producing enough power. I think when they say a problem with the grid, I think they're saying a problem with the capacity, that we're not making enough power. We're using record amounts of power.
Right.
And we haven't added power lately.
Okay.
From power plants. Let's see what she says.
Okay, so let's wave our magic wand. Okay. Boom, there she is. Just like that. Hey, let's see. Unmute your mic, Miss V. Hit the little microphone. Unmute it. You see that little microphone up there on your? Yeah, it's still muted. There you go. There you go. Hey, joining us right now, and I always get to talk to this lady on the phone. In fact, I started talking to this woman way back when I was on the radio, Happy Radio, with the storm. Hurricane. And I never met her personally, and now I just do it through the magic of this stuff, what we're doing here. So, and this lady's a trooper. I'm telling you, this lady's a trooper. So don't. Anybody's listening, nobody a hard time, because I all know where you live, and I'll come to your house and see you. All right, so I got you covered, Miss V. You don't have to worry about it. But anyway, this is V Strauss, the AEP, works with AEP. She knows everything there is to know about AEP. Everything. You know everything. She knows where every pole is, every line is. I'd like to complain to her about a couple of the workers that are down here, but you know what? I don't know. I want to say nothing bad about what's his name. What's his name, Mitch? Who do we always talk bad about?
You've got me.
What's his name? Oh, jeez. That's horrible because
There's only four, so I could probably deduct.
And it's
you froze up, Joe.
Yeah, am I froze, Mitch?
No, you're doing good. We're going to keep on.
Well, hey, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I was going to tell him, V, that you've been with AEP over 30 years. You must have started when you were in high school.
Almost out, just barely out.
Maybe elementary school.
Well, thank you. You're kind. But yeah, 32 years, and it seems like it hadn't been near that long. But as a utility, your past history in a utility, workers tend to stay.
Oh, amen. That's exactly right.
Of seniority and a lot of that. So, hey, but Mitch, I was listening to you talk about the grid and renewables and things like that. You're right. The grid has a lot to do with the capacity, the generation that's on it. And, there are some bottlenecks with wire size and transmission, but there's been a lot of build out, over the last several years. And so to try to remedy that, but it's phenomenal. And that's where I'll start off with why you invited me on here today. Was AEP Texas filed with the Public Utility Commission a rate case to review our base rates. And we do this every about 4 or 5 years. So the last one we did was in 2019. And so now we filed again, and most of it has to do with, look what's changed over the last 3, 4 years. We've had a lot, a pandemic. We've had a winter storm. We've had supply chain issues. We've got kind of a recession. We have inflated cost. Supply chain's a big thing in our industry because these items are hard to come by. There's a lot of lead time for ordering big equipment, big transformers, and things like that. So the rate case filing just allows us we're asking to adjust our base rates to make it more conductive to what we're seeing. Oh, I didn't even mention fleet. Talk about fleet vehicles. Got a lot we rely heavily on trucks. A lot of our things that we do, to get from A to B is big equipment trucks and, to do our job. So, and we were hindered there wasn't nothing available. So our fleet took a big hit trying to find replacement vehicles for everything across, not just AP Texas, across our whole corporate footprint. And we're not alone. It's a nationwide issue for utilities. But back to the grid, the electrical connections from transmission down to distribution all play a factor. And you've got to maintain 60 hertz. 60 hertz to maintain. If you fall a percentage below that, then that's critical. So, and that comes to capacity, available capacity. And your fossil fuel plants make a big difference in that. The renewables definitely play a role in Texas. There's a lot of renewables, but when you talk about a load coming on that's a gigawatt of power need, they're not going to get that from just wind and solar. They need it from the fossil fuel plants too. So it's a big, happy mixture of need. So that's where we come in with our base rate, which is technically we're asking for a rate adjustment for our overhead and maintenance, because capital expenses, we do file every year. And we can get a return, but now is a true up time for those too. So we definitely are asking for this just because of what everyone else is experiencing in day to day and what costs of doing business. So that's the PUC governs us. We're regulated, even though
Public Utility Commission. Yes.
So we're regulated. Generators are not. And neither is the retail providers, not to the extent we are. A retail electric provider does the billing. They bill you. We're the ones you see. We're the physical. We have all the assets here. We do the metering. We do all of that. And then the generators are stationary. They're at whatever generation station they are. Of course, the biggest asset sitting in Matagorda County is the nuclear plant. That's definitely a valuable, hard fossil fuel right there. So, but gosh, some of this load that we've seen in our footprint over the last 2 years, 20 years ago, the last 20 years, we've experienced about 56 megawatt of growth, every year. And that was, steadily increased. Since 2021 till now, that has grown from 56 megawatt to 580 or
Wow.
540 megawatt each year.
Okay.
Phenomenal, the growth. I think we see it when we drive to the bigger metropolitan areas. You see it in Houston, the traffic, the expansion, the growth, the industry that has popped up here. Matagorda County, we've got some of this industry in play.
We do.
Which is 2 gigawatt of power load?
Yeah, at least.
And Mike Ferdinand, you mentioned Mike last week. Mike he's herding cats with all the interest that is out there. And a lot of these are green energy. It's fueled by the Inflation Reduction Act, from the federal side, but it's a global thing too. There's some restraints in Europe on supply, so that has a lot of these foreign companies looking here. In the U.S. and Texas has available land. We've got other resources. It makes sense. So that's why we're being looked at. Not to mention the resident influx we've had from other states. And so we have residential growth as well. But the biggest is our industry growth across in the coast is prime for that, the Gulf Coast. So I think that's where Matagorda County is definitely prime for the picking because of proximity and then also the property that's available. So AEP Texas with this filing with the PUC, this is going to take all year. We suspect by the end of the year we may have a ruling. There's interveners in the case, those who represent all the cities we serve, those that represent industry that's here already and future, also other entities that have a stake in this. You mentioned battery. I think you talked about battery storage. That is on 12th Street next to our substation.
Yeah.
We call that Bay City sub right there. They're also looking at our Black Cat sub, which is out by the hospital and the high school. The entity
the one behind the hospital.
Yeah, they look there. A lot of these batteries locate next to a substation just because
they can draw it off.
Yeah, and so, what we've seen is the batteries have value in the summer and in the winter when the solar goes down and the wind hadn't picked up at night. Then that battery kicks on and it helps that load to meet that gap. But there's some question that not all of them are charging at night. Some are charging during peak hours to prep for that time. So, that's a little, that's I think against the model that was sold for these batteries, but I think that can be managed out and worked. So
when we talk about capacity, so we have two capacities. We have the capacity of the line and how much it can handle. I liken it to a water hose. So if I am going to feed a subdivision with water and I hook a water hose to it, it's not going to, that shopping center is not going to get a lot of water. It's going to take a long time to fill up a commode and a toilet and to run a sink. So your wire lines are that way, right?
Of course. It's all about size.
Yeah, the size of it and how much you can put across.
Yeah. And, I talked about capital investments and improvements. AEP Texas, since our last rate case, has invested $5 billion in our service territory. Matagorda's seen it. Of course, Black Cat substation. But the reconstruction of our transmission line from Lane City into Bay City, right there on 12th Street.
Yeah. Yep.
And then also the transmission line from Blessing that feeds all the way down to the Port of Bay City. That line is almost complete. There's some stuff they're still working on that. But those are all big investments, changing the wire size, changing the capability to make it ready for this future growth and such like that. Most of these lines are 138 kV capable. Some were 69 and we're bumping that up. A lot of these big industries want the 345 kV, which is
Right.
coming out of the nuclear plant, STP, out of the corridor,
Right.
wanting to tie in there. With the wind farm, does that. They tie into a 345
Mhm.
there south of Wadsworth or in the Wadsworth area.
Mhm.
And so, it's just the nature of the beast. They want to get their product on the system, and that's how they tie into different levels of power. So, but it's a lot of moving parts. And ERCOT, you mentioned ERCOT earlier, they're kind of they're the monitor. They try to see where the capacity is and where the load is needed, and they have to monitor that 24/7, every minute, and
I
make
call
sure.
them the air traffic controllers of power.
They sure are, because it's definitely in the summer. Y'all mentioned in the summer we had call after call after call for conservation.
Yeah.
In August, since we had such a high heat last year, August set a peak load for AEP Texas territory.
And
It was
see, y'all aren't producing power, so you're just the wires between the producer that and me, the customer. So we're not looking to you to increase the production. When we say increase production from AEP Texas, what we're saying is getting bigger wires into our neighborhoods.
true, and that's why we have rates and tariffs. We also want to be mindful and build the right thing, and not overbuild
Sure.
because of the cost. Because
Yeah.
we have ratepayers, and we don't want to burden our ratepayers with that. So we take a hard look at where we're going to invest money for the build of new infrastructure. And so that it's a fine line. And here on the coastal region, it makes sense. But out in West Texas, for the longest, that was not a whole lot of growth going on.
Right.
And then the data center started arriving.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
Data, Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
where do they go? They go to the dry climate,
Yeah.
and there's a transmission or, some capacity. So that's where they're at. They need the power. They need that transmission level power, to sustain. And it's everywhere. And I think, was it about 2 months ago, we talked about artificial intelligence
Yes.
Did that hit home or not? And those mega computers, that's what these data centers are. Mega computers crunching data to run artificial intelligence.
And using power to do it.
A lot of power. You got to keep those units cool. It's air conditioning. It's mostly air conditioning, but then also, the components themselves. So,
well, V, is there something, and I'm sure there's a way that if one of our citizens wants to comment one way or the other, I know in the newspaper there are ways for them. Or is the comment period open? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, at the Public Utility Commission level, it is. The PUC, we still have, I think that's still open. Like I said, there's a city attorney group that's representing all cities.
Okay.
You can let your city know. They can share that with the group that's intervened in the case. There's going to be a lot of negotiation and to what we've asked for. We know we're not going to get that. So it's all going to be negotiated down to eventually, when we started this thing, it was going to impact like a typical residence of 1,000 kilowatt hours. You would see a $2 increase in your bill.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's where this was going to end up. So we think that with the negotiations and the PUC's involvement, that may be less. But our biggest factor is we need to be able to cover the growth. We need to be able to invest and to do our jobs. And not only that, they're talking about a busy hurricane season, 2024. This was the NOAA last week at the hurricane conference, Mid-Coast Hurricane Conference. El Nino, we're in that phase right now for this summer. So that indicates a bigger spawn off of the conduciveness for hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. go.
Yeah, and the heat of the Gulf is it's already warming up. Right. Well, I tell you, just from a Joe Blow a customer, one, I do want the power to come on when I flip the light switch, right? So you've got to stay ahead of poles need to be replaced, vehicles need to be replaced. Your payroll is quite a bit. So on one side, I see all the reasons why a rate increase is needed. But at the same time, what struck me was we've got inflation, everything's going up, insurance, windstorm, our power bill is going up, and although although very, very necessary, your rate increase, very probably needed and probably well deserved. It's just one more thing that hits us in the pocketbook. And I know you pay for your power just like we do.
Oh yeah, same boat. We're all consumers too. Even who we work for, we don't get it free. As people used to think you'd get the phone free, right? Your phone.
Oh yeah. No, that's right.
We
It's
all
like you. That was a tariffed item, and you couldn't give it away.
No, we're the same way. And we totally understand that. Our insurance has gone up as well. Everything on top of that. Not only as a company, but us as employees at our homes, especially on the coast. We got the
your groceries have gone up just like everybody else's.
Yeah, I think I bought some Bluebell ice cream yesterday and paid $8.32. And I thought, oh my word. I hadn't bought ice cream in a while, but I picked some dewberries, so I was gonna make a cobbler. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh man.
But I understand, and we get that because we pay this too. So but I think we can't operate at a loss when all of the supplies and chain and things that cost us to do business have tripled in cost. And we're competing for materials that make a transformer is a thin metal, a steel. Well, guess what other competes for that? EV vehicles.
Oh boy.
So it's a matter of the supply of the raw material, and where is that interest now? Well, if it's being supported for EV, then there's a lot of it that's going to go to that build out versus the bread and butter things that we need to run, basic business or utilities. So it's frustrating.
I thank you for what you do. I do. I realize, and I do realize there are some comments on the side, but I do realize there's two different paths when we talk about a capacity. There's wire capacity, what it can bring. I know there are some locations, even here in Matagorda County, that if somebody wanted to be a power customer, you would have to go in there and beef those lines up.
Yeah,
so I get that. I know where those are. Certainly, they're doing it now. Not AEP Texas, but Jackson Electric is going down 2668 with bigger lines because of the Rome USA build out. So, but I will tell you, and I know there was a call either this week or last week of conservation, because a lot of the power plants, not your company, you don't produce power, you move power. But I know STP, for instance, is in an outage, a refueling outage, and so that capacity was not there. And I know they were predicting 90 plus degrees weather, and they got nervous. But it has nothing to do with UV. But I've got to say it. Texas has got to wake up. We deregulated this market 20-something years ago.
23 years ago.
23. And so there is no incentive to overbuild, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a buffer of power that you might not need, and so you might not have to sell. And who wants to do that in an unregulated market? But I appreciate y'all. I appreciate what AEP's done. I have to say, during Harvey, you particularly, but your company. I know our former county judge was visiting quite regularly with one of your senior vice presidents about getting things fixed in a timely fashion.
Mhm.
And I know Harvey impacted your department, the Victoria office, the Matagorda office, and all the other offices tremendously. So hats off.
Mhm.
Thank you for the hours and hours and the hard work and the communications that y'all did during Harvey.
Yeah, and then we had that little Hurricane Nicholas.
Yeah.
You know, that was so you forget about that one. It wasn't a Harvey news event, but it's still, something that made some changes. Talking about infrastructure, we did a lot of ductile steel poles down in Matagorda
Yes.
on the beach and waterfront. Those made a big difference. Nicholas, we didn't have any impact with them.
Okay.
They stood their ground, and we'd like to do more of that. So it's building smarter and making it more resilient, and that's also reliability too. So that's where we need to get.
Yeah, I want to tell you, I'm on the same circuit as the hospital, and so I really enjoy being on that circuit.
Yeah, you're in good shape. We try to take care of those circuits with when it's life matters like that.
Yeah.
In hospitals, the water station, the water plant, and the lift station, not lift stations, but the water treatment plant,
Right.
definitely are critical in any kind of situation because no one wants that backing up or not working.
No,
Have
absolutely.
that infrastructure in place. So, but definitely, hats off to the community and their patience. But we try to hit it. It takes a village to get things restored, and we tend to set up quickly. And I'm proud of that fact. When we bring in crews, we bring them in. And so that makes a big difference to hit our areas. Harvey was unique. It tore us up all the way to Corpus, Rockport, all of our area. That's our territory.
Right.
From here, Matagorda County, all the way down to Brownsville, almost is all of our coastal territory. And we're going to get hit. We know it. It's just a matter of where that lands. But fortunately, Harvey was an eye opener, but we knew we've had that before. But it was definitely don't want to go through that again. I'd rather retire, not having to do a major storm.
Me and you both.
Yeah, don't you think?
Me and you both.
Well, and I know you during the pandemic, you were front and center for a lot of reports there, and we never shut down either.
Right.
We were still doing our thing out in the field, and it kept things going, and we were all at the working and running. It's the same deal. We just don't shut down. So whether it's weather or something we never would have expected in a pandemic. So
absolutely. Well, V, thank you so much. Part of our podcast is getting that information out. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. You've been in every newspaper, full page ad in every newspaper. That can't be cheap. I know our local newspapers love it.
Yeah.
Paid advertising, but I just want everybody to understand what's going on, get the truth. The rumor mill is not a place to get your information. Facebook, social media, I should say, is probably not the place to get it. It's to go straight to the source. And V, I sure appreciate you climbing on.
Thank you, Mitch, and I hope to see Jeff again sometime if he.
Yeah, he lost internet, and so I'm going to close this thing out with a few minutes to spare. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, folks, it looks like Jeff heard a loud boom and he is offline. And so I'm not sure that we're still broadcasting, but I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit. We've got a couple of things real quick. Today started early voting for some of the local elections in Matagorda County. We've got the city of Palacios. We've got a Bowling ISD of all things. We've got some Matagorda County residents will be voting on a bond issue with Bowling ISD, Palacios ISD. But in our area right here, Bay City ISD has a contested race. And so Laura Robichaud is running against Esau Rodriguez. Early voting starts today. It runs through Friday, and then election day is May the 4th. Also talk a little bit, and not to confuse you, but want to talk a little bit about the election, May the 28th. That early voting starts on the 20th, runs through the 24th, 25th, I think. And then election day is May the 28th. And that's a Tuesday. So we want to get out and vote. We have a contested race there as well. So if you have any information, make sure you go to I looked up Matagorda County, Miss Wertz's website, had all the information I needed right there. Real exciting information for that. And so I really want to encourage you to vote. These candidates really put themselves out there. If you don't think your vote counts or you can't make a difference, one, you're wrong. I'll just correct you there. But the other is the candidates deserve your attention and your look. They're putting their lives on the line to run. Some of them will put their life on hold to, not life on the, but life on hold to run, life on hold to serve. We deserve you being able to come out and vote. It's real easy. Voter ID. It's Bay City Service Center right here in Bay City. The Palacios Annex is another place to vote. During election day, you'll have several of the voting precincts up and open. But it's very, very important that you reach out and go ahead and vote. Again, I apologize for Jeff. He's lost internet. I'm not sure if I'm broadcasting right now, but we've got a lot going on. REW, AEP. We certainly have the elections that's going to be in the forefront. Folks, you're going to hear on the radio and on TV all kind of crazy things, particularly on social media. I wouldn't just automatically believe it because you read something. Do your homework. The candidates deserve it. Some of them, especially the ones running for District 30, a state rep, I'm telling you, they're spending a lot of money. Signs, advertising cost an awful lot of money. Let's see. But okay, Andy says I'm still on, so I'm going to keep going. Andy also says the linemen are all heroes. He really is. That's not. I'm not reading the other one about Jeff's mug, but I will tell you that there's a lot going on, and we're excited to be a part of the growth. If you'll go by the housing development off of 16th Street, that is already building homes, and so I understand Russell Ranch will start some homes. Bullfox, Sandhill subdivision will start soon. We had Jessica Russell on last Friday. And we were excited about what she had to offer. And so here we go. I'm just going to look real quick and see what other information I wanted to cover. I did have a couple of other topics. But we just want to make sure that everybody's informed. If you have any questions, I can actually see the questions now. If you have any, InsideTexas24@gmail.com. If you've got any comments about REW, the city's operation, AEP Texas, and what's going on there, the elections, and those kinds of things, let us know. So I'm going to sign off just a little bit early. And I know Jeff said his hotspot blew up. So hopefully the battery on his hotspot blew up. And I think he's got some smoke going on. And That was the bang. So he's dealing with a lot of crazy stuff. But we will be back next Monday. Thank you so much for stopping in, visiting with us. If you have concerns, if you have questions, we'll do the digging for you. We'll pull the individuals on here. We'll let you hear it straight from them. No more rumors. We'll work with very closely now with Mike Ferdinand, Jessica Russell. We'll get you the answers you need. County judge, he and I are emailing almost hourly on a lot of issues coming up for that. We've got some situations that we're going to have to, from a countywide standpoint, we're going to have to address. But like I said, stay tuned. We will be back next Monday, 7 o'clock, Inside Texas. For Jeff Michaels and Mitch Thames, we certainly appreciate you being here. And take care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.